So if I gave you a textbook on how to swim and you read it for 3 years and then I took you and chucked you in the ocean, you'd sink. Because swimming isn't a theory thing, it's a practice thing. You have to do it to know how to do it. So the first thing I'd say is it's somebody who's failed. I love people who failed because they've proven they've tried something and that they know what's on the other side of not succeeding, which is this failure thing. The second is somebody who believes in themselves even when there's ridiculous odds to suggest it's not going to work. You know, I always say entrepreneurs are crazy. You have to be crazy to be an entrepreneur because you got to believe you're going to make money month end, which often you're not. You got to believe you can compete with big companies, which often you can't. You got to believe you can reach all your customers, which often you won't. And you have to believe you can do so cheaply and cost effectively and make a profit, which in the early days you probably won't do. If you don't believe those 4 things, you're not going to succeed as an entrepreneur. So you've absolutely got to be certifiable, absolutely crazy.
Positive thinking in many cases repulses people. You're telling me to be positive and I'm going through a divorce. You're telling me to be positive and I threw 3 interceptions. You're telling me to be positive and I got to deal with this president. You're telling me to be positive and I got this current situation. You're telling me to be positive and I got this health situation. So then what's the alternative? Well, the alternative has always been negative. So when we would get to the University of Alabama, you have this finite window of time. How long could you influence? Everything comes down to influence. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Whether it's your family, your kids, whatever the circumstance or the situations. So what are the things that are in our control? What we watch when we get home, what we listen to when we're in our car, who we talk to when we get on our cell phone, and what we say out loud always as we speak. And I think that those are the powerful things, and ultimately our behavior is what's going to define our success.
Yeah. Step one, what
Step
state
one
are you
is
in?
notice when you've moved into a primal state. Step 2, know that the only thing that's causing you to move into that emotional state, which is sympathetic, is your own thinking. Step 3, take a look at what the thinking is. Step 4, play around with or be willing to be open to the fact that if it's moving you into a primal state, it may not be true. Right? Step 5 would be, if that's not true, then some form of the opposite must be true. What might that be? And step 6 would be, well, what evidence do you have for the fact that that would be true? What happens over time is the brain starts to even get acclimated to this process. So like I don't go through the 6-step process every time, right? I notice I have an emotional reaction and I reorient myself fairly quickly. And like I said, I'm a human being, so I get hooked on things that are triggers, you know, for me all the time. I just don't get hooked as frequently and I don't spend as much time in the hook.
When you become helpless, you become hopeless. And when I feel like I can control my behavior, when I feel like I'm in control of, even if I'm going through cancer, even if I'm going through a difficult challenge, even if I'm going through a reorg in a business, you know, if I still feel like, okay, this is not optimal, but there's something I can do, then I'm helpful to myself. And when I'm helpful, I'm hopeful. And when I'm helpless, I'm hopeless. So my dad's belief always was to make hope a habit. And that hope was the most powerful medicine that we all have. And then I think we have to believe that we can influence our future. You know, we've got to believe. I believe that no matter what I'm facing, I can influence my future. That just because my first marriage didn't work, that doesn't mean my second marriage won't. But it's incumbent upon me to be better, right? And that's where, if I'm spending time, well, she didn't do this, she didn't do, there's nothing I can do about that, right? But that's true, and that's where you're talking about, well, the past feels predictive, right? Well, I thought, you know what, hey.
And then the third thing is just people who are passionate. Like, you gotta love what you do. Because I remember in the early days, the only thing that fed me was my passion. There was no money at the end of the month. In fact, there was too much month at the end of the money.
Yeah.
So you just gotta be passionate. You gotta love what you do.
Yeah, I love that.
What are you gonna do to be different going forward? But so many people think the self-help industry is about things you do. I think one of the things that makes athletes so incredible is what they're willing not to do, what they're willing not to say, what they're willing not to eat, what they're willing not to consume, what they're willing not to watch. That's what makes it. Think about, it's January 2020, what are 5 things you cannot do right now that will instantly make your life better, okay? So you're gonna have to adapt your behavior to get in alignment with winning behaviors. So the illusion of choice is this fact that there are not an infinite amount of choices. There may be options.
We see a world where the biggest problems are being solved. And in our language, that's restoring intelligence to humanity, really helping humanity evolve to the next is an evolution of the nervous system. It's an evolution of intelligence. And so that's our goal. You know, my experience was suffering, so we want to help people end their suffering and then go beyond that to have a powerful living experience.
But the power of positive thinking never resonated with me. And when I was young and I was 18 years old and dropped out of college and I was diagnosed with an initial diagnosis of cancer, and it turned out to be shingles and a number of other things, I did start to understand quickly that, well, I don't know if positive thinking works all the time, and that the data's anecdotal. I do know that negative thinking does work, and it works negatively. And one of the things is I would start at Alabama, and I would start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I would start with the Miami Dolphins. I started to realize, and even looking back to a young age, well, if somebody says something out loud, it's 10 times more powerful than if they think it. And then as we started to study the data, particularly data that was just reinforced by Christine Porath from Georgetown and Harvard, that negativity is a multiple of 4 to 7 times more powerful than positivity. So think about that. If I say something out loud, it's 10x. If it's negative, it's 4 to 7 times more powerful. So when I say negative things out loud, it's 40 to 70 times more likely that that will happen or cause a result that won't be good for me than if I just didn't say anything.
Meaning when you're caught in this cybernetic loop.
Can you define cybernetics?
Yeah, so it's this idea that what you believe will dictate your thoughts on a moment-by-moment basis. So if you believe that, you know, money is hard to make, as a simple example, you're not going to have ideas or thoughts around money that would be lending to making it easily, right? And so what you believe dictates what you think. You can't get like an apple from an orange tree. And what you think you then experience is an emotion, right? And then that emotion then dictates what actions you do or do not take. And they're always aligned, right? Your beliefs dictate your thoughts, dictate your emotions, dictate your actions, which produce your results. And your results, when you look at them, then just reinforce the original belief. And so we're caught in that construct, right? But the linchpin is the belief system. So the question is, how do I actually change what I believe? If my beliefs really do dictate my destiny, right? Which is, I'm not the only person suggesting that. The question becomes, how do I change my beliefs? And in that is an inherent challenge, because by definition, beliefs are that which are true, right, for us. And so then the question is, how do we break out of this? My way of breaking out of it was at one point to understand, and I'll start to kind of walk you through the structure of it, to understand that there were only 2 states of emotional beingness that I could be in at any given point in time. I could either be in a powerful state of being, states like joy, curiosity, excitement, calm, peace, passion, or I would be in a primal state of being, boredom, anger, frustration, some form of fear. I'm always in one of those 2 states, and I'm never in 2 states at one time. Now, those map beautifully to the sympathetic.
I want to demystify thinking. I want to demystify it. I don't want people to feel like it's only for people that are really, really bright. I want to demystify the idea that change is a challenge. So A, your language is powerful, but number 2, your behavior is way ahead of your success. And so many people let their feelings dictate what they do, as opposed to throw your behavior out there. Russell Wilson's 5'10". He shouldn't be playing pro football, but he behaves like the best quarterback in the country. And he's done that since before he was at that level. And then his feelings and emotions and his skill caught up to that behavior. Well, are you born with the gift to make time for people? No, it's a behavior. So to me, the illusion of choice is thinking you can have a good marriage and talk 27 minutes a week. So you have to make time in order to talk.